Hey everybody. I want to walk you through very quickly the basics of creating a poster using PowerPoint. So I'm not going to go through all of the design things that students can do if they really spend time digging in and playing around. I'm just going to do some of the basics of how to set it up. So on the genre quiz that you did on Monday, you will have seen these two layouts for a portrait style poster, portrait as opposed to landscape. As you see, it's about columns for the most part. Some you can combine those columns into thicker columns, squares in this case. You can cut them up all sorts of ways, but fundamentally it's 3 or 4 columns, usually 3 since we're going long ways. The format can be chopped up. As I said, this is basically a 4-column layout that has just been combined together in an interesting way with that circle in the middle. This one is fundamentally 3 columns here, but they have the information sort of floating, which would be an interesting thing to do. You could certainly do that with the method we're going to look at here. This is a more traditional one with its text boxes just sitting there like this. So this one's fun. 2 big columns in this case. Different ways to chop it up. But the way to go about making one of these, you start by opening PowerPoint. It'll give you the choice of a bunch of different themes. For now, I would recommend choosing a blank presentation. It's automatically going to give you the sort of standard PowerPoint slide shape. And what you want to do is go up to Page Setup under File. You can get to this also under the Design tab, but for some reason it's not been working for me today. All of the posters are going to be 30 inches wide and 40 inches tall. The reason for that is largely because that's how big the poster printer can make them, 30 wide, and because the Scholars Week easels that we're using for this are those dimensions. So a landscape poster won't work as well. It doesn't matter if you scale or don't scale in this case. I'll scale this time. I usually start by just deleting the text boxes it starts me with. So this is our canvas to work on. The way that I usually approach it is to throw shapes up. You can also go straight to text boxes if you want, but I find text boxes are a little harder to manipulate. So I'm going to just pick some rectangles and start from there. Let's assume I want this to be where my title's going to be. Maybe I'll even make it a little bigger. Let's do another one, and that's going to be where my intro box is going to be. And let's just copy it and paste it for simplicity's sake. And here's where another section is going to be. And let's copy it again. Let's have a kind of narrower section there. Let's have another full-sized column here, just so that it looks nice and symmetrical with the other one. And maybe there I want it to go down almost to the bottom. Whatever you decide. And maybe this is where an image is going to be. So I've blocked out the sort of basics of where I want things within this space. From here, I would actually grab a text box and throw it over the same area. So I can actually start typing, this is the introduction section, text, 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 blah, 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 blah. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this shape an outline, which I'll give it in red just so we can really see it. And then if I want to, well, actually what you can also do is fill the shape with a color, and then the blue around it starts to look like a frame. You can also when you want to delete that frame, and you're left with just the text box. That's the way I do it so that I can plan out how I want the shapes to work generally. From here, of course, you can pick a different theme if you want to. There's lots to choose from that might add a visual element students want. This is a fun one. You'd have to block out some of the space for the middle parts that aren't really built for this. That one's not going to work super well. This one could be okay. One of these probably is a pretty good theme for this. They can play around with the theme they want, obviously. But once they've got the basics in there, this one would probably be a perfectly fine theme for these kinds of projects. Encourage them to play around, discover what they're most interested in terms of their visual design. I think this one will make a perfectly good one too. When they are ready, what they'll do is you can save it as a PowerPoint presentation, which I'm just going to drop on my desktop so that I can delete it more easily later. They can turn in this file directly for the sake of presentation and for printing. They can also export as a PDF. And here it is as a PDF. And it will print at the full 30 by 40 size. Obviously, students are going to play around with these designs a lot until they get the look they want. But this is the fundamental way that they'll do it. They'll probably do most of the writing for these individual sections in a Word document and copy and paste it over. But ultimately, this is how they'll end up laying it out. When they're ready to insert pictures, it's a pretty straightforward affair if they've got them on their desktop already to drop them in or to find some online. So that's the basics. That's about as much as you probably need to talk your students through, and they should be able to pick up the rest.